Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey. We're here for our round 3 NRL coverage. We're going to preview the round, give you our best bets and break it all down. Before we get to all that and more, got to find out, Winnie, how are you, my man?
I'm excellent, thanks, mate. I'd be happier if we were a little better than 2-2 on best bets, but it is very early days. I won with New Zealand, but lost with my unders play. Your Titans not nearly as tough as we needed them to be. And unfortunately, the worst part was losing the mixed matchup. We're $1.12 in the live run with the unders that we needed going into just one game, which was the Bulldogs-Titans game. We needed under 58.5. I think there was 64 in that one. So we're in a minimal profit so far this season, combining best bets and mixed matchups. I do have a really exciting announcement, which I'll share after best bets, which is going to be an addition to the show moving forward that I think is going to add a whole nother layer of quality for our followers and a lot more bets. So I can tell people now there's going to be more best bets in tonight's show than there has been in a really long time.
That's right, guys. I am replacing Winnie, and I'm giving a best bet for every single... No, I'm joking, guys. No, it's really exciting. Look, before we get to that, we do have a funny comment rolling from Spilt Milk Radio about the Joe from the pub thing, Winnie. And I just wanted to borrow a minute of your time and our viewers' time, if I can, with these quick stats before we throw to best bets, if that's okay.
Yeah, mate.
Awesome. All righty, guys. So in 2024, there was 213 NRL games. 79 were upsets. That was a 37% chance of an upset occurring, and it equaled 2.5 underdogs winning per round. When we drag that back 5 years, we get to 997 games where 293 upsets have been produced at a 29% chance, and that works out to 2 underdogs per round. And we go back to the last 10 years, Winnie, that gives us 2002 NRL games, 641 upsets at a 32% chance, and it works out to 2.2 underdogs per round. So historically, the upset rate is slightly increasing in the NRL. It's now at 2.5. So off average, we're looking at 2 to 3 upsets or underdogs every single round. Those stats are via random stats guy, Winnie. I just wanted to throw that out there to show that last round was a little bit of an outlier, I suppose, with all the upsets we had.
Last round was one of the most shocking rounds of footy ever. We had the biggest upset ever in the NRL era. It was the 3 biggest favourites of the round as well that all went down. So you're not going to get that every week, but it was a reminder that it's not always that easy to draw form lines throughout these teams, and there's going to be ebbs and flows and fluctuations for sure throughout the season. That's probably a teaser towards some of my round 3 plays, that the form is not going to back these up, but hopefully my explanation does.
Mate, I love it. I'm excited. I will be on them with the TryPod community. Let's draw back the curtains, mate, and let's roll out the best bets for round 3. What do you got for us?
Okay, let's start with another total. Friday night, Warriors-Roosters. I'm going to play under 24.5 in the first half at $1.85 on 365. These are 2 teams that both scored 30+ last week, but honestly, those games sort of sprung it on their opponent, and I expect neither will underestimate the other in this one. I think the fact that it's a tight game helps my unders as well, and it's also a night game. I'm just not sold on the halves combo of either team. Second choice kickers could help us out with a missed kick here or there, and strong forward packs for both, with the ins that we'll discuss for the Roosters, which I think also helps the Tricolours defence that has conceded 82 through 2 games. I really think both sides will highly value possession, so I want to play first half unders. I am then going to play on Saturday my Finns, $1.85 head-to-head on Dabble. Just win the game. I think the Tigers look too good on Sunday because the Eels are so inept. The Finns were well below their best, but played a tough opponent in round 2. Probably should have won in round 1. I think these sides are pretty even despite what we've seen so far. But you throw in the fact that I've got one team at home and a home opener and just more desperate at 0-2. I feel that the Dolphins get the win. So I'm going to play that. Then I'm going to play your Titans, who I also think will win at home against the Knights, but I'm getting plus half a try, $1.87 on 365. The Knights are missing 2 key forwards, and I think there's a clear advantage in the pack to the Gold Coast, who again are at home and have not shown as much form, but I really feel it has a similar ability to Newcastle in my eyes, and I'm going to catch half a try with the team I think can win. And I'm going to take another ugly pick on Sunday. You guessed it, Parramatta plus 4.5 in the first half at $1.88 Ladbrokes Neds against the Bulldogs. And here I've just got a team that has to show us more and has the personnel and ability to play a lot better than what we've seen at Parramatta through 2 weeks, as opposed to a Bulldog side that's 2-0, but is missing two really key players. It's just, I've seen this game so many times, and you throw form out the window, it's often a really tight one with that winless team coming up against 2-0, especially the 2-0 does not have their biggest game breakers. And Parramatta, we know it's going to be a slow start under Riles, but they've got a point to prove, enough quality to keep it close in this one. And I often like underdogs first half, but I'll explain a little more why I took that as opposed to the full 9.5 for the game. But that's my my 4 plays. And as we saw last week, and my co-host and mate Clarkey constantly reminds us, week's a long time in footy. So I'm bucking the form lines there. Look at the teams I'm playing. Finns, Titans, Eels, not a win between them. But I think they'll all show their best work of the year so far in week 3. And I'll give the announcement as well. But your response to the best bets before we get a word from Tristan, because, of course, he's been on his yacht after lining his pockets when the results went in the bookies' favour in round 2.
Yep, I've heard that Tristan cleaned up from Joe down at the pub, as he did for all of us with Joe's actually last round. So well done to Tristan there. We'll hear from him in just a second. But yeah, let's get to the major announcement you've got, mate. Exciting news for the TryPod moving forward.
So, mate, I was really thinking, how can I make the show better? How can we improve it? I'm always listening to feedback, but it occurred to me that I missed the days where we had more best bets. I think there were more available. So there were more angles. So I felt confident giving more plays out and having more skin in the game for more matches. But it's not as simple as me saying, oh, well, the show would be better if there were more bets, because people love like strong opinions, putting it all on the line. But if it's not genuine, if it's not something I feel strongly confident in, or yourself, we're never just going to tip for the sake of tipping. So how do you get more strong bets? You need more tipsters. And that's something we have at our disposal, and an amazing community with lots of talented, knowledgeable people who put the work in. So I thought, why don't we utilize a lot of these guys and contacts, and the audience is already familiar with a lot of the guys I'm going to introduce again that have contributed to the show in the past, that do the work, that all actually have their own page as well that you can follow depending on your personal preference, because everyone does it a different way, goes about it in a different style. So let's, if we can, I know it's a tight window, and that's where I've put the pressure on the boys that I've brought in, but they've all answered the call. We're going to get weekly tips as often as they possibly can, whenever, unless something intervenes. Basically, these boys are going to try and send me their favorite tip of the week that is available right now. It's got to be available live, so they can't even lock it in until after team lists. And that is the Padonis, you guys know well, the Undertaker, great contributor for a long time, Benny Howard, who caught fire last year and was on the show a few times, and Benny Williamson, who you're also probably aware and tips a number of sports across his page and also in our group. And I've asked the boys to share their favorite play of the week via a clip, and we're going to integrate those into the show. So it also really puts me on notice, because I'm already putting myself under pressure to be profitable. But now you're going to see the best of the week for a bunch of other sharp tipsters out there. And naturally, we can see how we all go against each other too, and whether we're seeing games similarly, whether there's disagreements, but it's just going to give you a lot more interest. So hopefully it's going to be a welcome addition to the show.
Yep, that's it, guys. We're going to add in more, and we're looking forward to it. So throughout the show, periodically, Winnie will jump in and he'll get those clips across for us all. We'll get to our game-specific breakdown. We've got every game ready for you all. But before we do so, we need to hear from the man himself, the CEO of Top Sport. It's Mr. Tristan Merlehan.
G'day everyone, it's Tristan Merlehan here from Top Sport, and we saw some surprising results which seem to always occur in round 2. So obviously the Roosters beating the Panthers was the biggest upset by a long way. The Warriors also getting the result, and then the Raiders getting the result with a couple of other upsets we saw. So the Warriors Manly game was by far and away our biggest result of the weekend. A lot of multis got knocked over in that game. Surprisingly, though, the Panthers-Roosters game, whilst we won something on the match, there was no difference really between the Panthers winning small and not covering the spread, or the Roosters winning, which, you probably think when a $1.05 shot gets rolled that it's going to be a massive result for the bookies, and maybe it was for some of the other operators, but maybe for us, obviously the Warriors getting the result earlier probably knocked out a good chunk of the multis, and maybe even the Thursday night AFL game, which is just as big an upset when the Tigers beat Carlton. So That was probably the surprising result of the weekend from our perspective. The worst result, which was a double bad result from my perspective, were the Bulldogs covering the spread comfortably against the Titans. So good support for the Miners there. At 22-0 down, it looked like it was going to be anything. The Titans fought back into it, but obviously the Bulldogs scored that late try to pull away. Looking at the games for the weekend, the market's been pretty solid so far. We got the Panthers against the Storm, the grand final rematch on Thursday, which should be interesting. And the Storm were obviously very, very firm favourites in that game. There's been support for the Broncos against the Cowboys. That's gone from 15.5 out to 16.5. But the biggest move has actually been the Sharks against the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs winning their first two games. They've moved heavily against themselves in the spread. It's gone from 14.5 out to 17.5. So they're the biggest moves by some margin. And also, apologies, the Bulldogs have gone 6.5 out to 9.5, which has seen a strong move there as well. So good luck if you're having a wager over the weekend. And of course, gamble responsibly.
Good stuff from Tristan there. As always, we appreciate his exclusive insights. And let's move into it, Winnie. Let's go game by game, kicking us off with the grand final rematch. It's Storm v Panthers, Thursday, 8 p.m. We're at Amy Park and the line is set at -8.5 against the Storm. No move since team list. Nelson Asafa-Solomona, he's named in reserves and could come in on late notice. Will Warbrick is out, so Grant Anderson comes onto the wing there for the Storm. For the Panthers, no Dylan Edwards, so that moves Dane Laurie to fullback instead. Alrighty, Winnie, the Storm have won 8 of their last 9 against the Panthers at Amy Park, and Jerome Hughes plays his 150th NRL milestone game. This looms as a difficult assignment for the reigning premiers and the Panthers. How do you see it and why?
Well, I always lean to the loser of the grand final when we get the rematch for the revenge factor. But then you've got Penrith definitely wanting to respond to their shocker against the Chooks. Ryan comments he thought I might have been on Penrith. I think I did say to you Sunday night when I hadn't seen the line, I predicted 5.5, 6. But I wasn't aware, maybe I'd missed the news or I'm not sure if it just came out today, that Edwards wasn't going to be playing. So that should probably shift the line another couple of points. And I would have leaned Melbourne at a lower line. I wonder if Talangi could play one, but maybe Ivan wouldn't want to throw him in the deep end. You've got another fullback like Dane Laurie, who's been on the interchange the last couple of games and can cover that role. Nelson eligible to return this year too, though he's in the reserves, so I'm keeping an eye on that. Of course, the Storm were idle in round one, and thinking back, the Storm were idle in the second half against Para too, because all the damage was done in the first half. I want no part of Penrith in this one. I know that a great side will bounce back, but you just know Melbourne at home will be laser focused in this one. And it goes back to what I said on the season preview, why I picked Melbourne to win the comp. And I know there's a sentiment that basically everyone shares, so I'm not breaking news here. It's like we all pretty much agree Penrith was the better team last year, better on the night in the grand final, but you're taking Luai and Fisher-Harris out of that team. Now Edwards as well. And Melbourne's adding Stefano, maybe Big Nas. And, of course, home advantage in this one as opposed to the GF that was in Sydney. So I took a hard look at the -8.5, if I'm honest. And I reckon I probably would play it if Penrith had won last week. I won't be surprised if the Storm shred the Panthers. And then after 3 weeks, we're saying Penrith has had 2 really bad games and only looked good when best bet was against them. Of course, in round 1, Penrith couldn't have played better. I'm just going to stay off it because the Panthers did get humbled last week, and maybe the Panthers will relish such a rare opportunity to play the underdog role. But there are actually going to be a couple of best bets on this game from our hired guns. I'll throw to them after you give us your thoughts on this one, Clarkey.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, so Panthers coming off a shock loss, as you touched on, and no doubt they'll be able to make amends. And to be perfectly clear to everyone, I would tip the Panthers against every other side in the competition this week, even without Dylan Edwards. Just not the Melbourne Storm. That's the only team there. They are coming off a bye. They're coming in fresher. They are full of motivation, and they're out to avenge a loss in the grand final at their home stadium, where they hold a brilliant record as a whole and over the Penrith Panthers. Now, I certainly don't want to discount the Panthers, even if they are short on troops. They're still super classy. We know that. So with that in mind, I will predict the Melbourne Storm win this game by a 1-12 margin. My try scorers will be Brian Toto and Xavier Coates. I think each of them will score on each other. They will be opposite wingers. I think we'll see Coates score off a high ball. That seems to be Brian Toto's Achilles heel. And I think Brian Toto, after being smashed over the sideline with a chance to win the game last round, will get that over Xavier Coates. I am expecting a bit of a lower scoring game with tries to come from sort of shifts out wide or breaks after sort of sustained pressure on each other's goal line. So, yeah, Storm 1-12, my main prediction in this one, mate. What have our hired guns got to say on this one?
Well, you said you like unders. I think Benny Howard from Benny and the Bets, who, of course, finished 20-3 on his Play of the Week in the TryPod group last year. I think he's seeing it similarly. Let's have a listen.
Hey TryPod followers, this is Benny from Benny and the Bets, giving you a weekly best bet for the TryPod. So the bet this week is the Panthers under 18.5 total match points. Yeah, I just think it's going to be a bit of a tight game. It should be similar to the grand final. I think, if anything, I can see the Storm running away with it. So I think it's just a bit safer to take the Panthers under 18.5. Also think it could be a little bit of dew on the surface. So hopefully there is. And regardless, I just think it should be a tight scoring game, a tight low scoring game rather. And yeah, gamble responsibly.
Awesome stuff
Let's
there.
go straight to the Undertaker, mate. He's got one as well, and then we can respond to both.
G'day TryPod. For my bet of the week, I'm going to go Melbourne versus Penrith, game of the week. I'm going to take either team 1-12. That's $1.95 on Bet365. The logic's pretty simple. If the Panthers were catching 12.5 points, I think everyone would take them. On the other hand, do you think the Panthers can ever blow out Melbourne in Melbourne? I'm going to say no. So instead of taking the 8.5, which I would lean to anyway, I'm going to effectively take 12.5 on Panthers. That's my bet of the week. Good luck, everybody.
Awesome, mate. Anything from yourself on those two best bets?
I mean, Matty simplifies it. He would be the one to tell you that never in a million years can Philly beat KC 13 plus in the Super Bowl, or could his Manly team lose 13 plus last week. But I actually do agree with him that I can't fathom Penrith winning 13 plus in Melbourne. Surely not. So if you like Penrith, I absolutely love Undertaker's way of playing that. Play either 1-12 instead of the plus 8.5, and a loss by 10 or 12 is a winner for you instead of a loser. And what you're risking is the blowout Penrith win that would be, as shocking as the Penrith result last week, just about.
Yeah, it would definitely be an unexpected one there. Alrighty, moving on to game 2. We've got Warriors v Roosters, Friday 6 p.m. We're at Go Media Stadium again in Auckland. Line was set at -1.5 against the Warriors. It has moved ever so slightly to half a point there. No changes to their lineup. For the Roosters, they welcome back Lindsay Collins, Victor Radley, and Spencer Lanu. Both of these sides had questions to answer in round 2, and both answered in emphatic fashion, recording crucial victories under different circumstances. Which of these sides are you going to back to make it 2 in a row, and why, Winnie?
Yeah, couldn't really pick that, so I've ended up with unders. But you're right, the two big bounce-back teams of round 2. So New Zealand names the same 17 for the third straight week. Berry could join from the reserves. But as for the Roosters, getting bolstered by Lanu, Collins, Radley, as you say, to a team that just rolled the 4-peat champs, as people have heard, my best bet is unders. Even though I'm taking two sides that poured on points last week, I really believe that New Zealand is a below-average attack, and it's predicated on dominating the opposing pack, which I don't think will occur with the Roosters reps that are returning. And then you've got a Roosters side that sure scored a lot of points in an ambush over the Panthers, but still is a team with Smith and Townsend, going to light up a lot of sides, especially on the road. And I think New Zealand is an above-average defence. And even Watson, as great as he was last week, is a somewhat of a makeshift 9. You got new combinations in your centres too, still developing. And the fact that I can't split sides, actually, I'll lean to unders when I think a game is going to be tight, because I really do think possession will be 9/10 of the law in this one. And by playing first half unders, I just protect it from if either team does get the upper hand and breaks the spirit of the opponent and the defenses, should they loosen late, leading to points, I don't have to worry about that. Just play first half under 24.5, $1.85, 365.
I like it, mate, but I've actually got a strong lean in this game, and it's towards the Warriors. Now, I just look at this side and I think the home preparation of remaining in New Zealand for another round is a really underrated beneficial factor for them to the side that travelled to Las Vegas. Now, we've seen two different Warriors side. The Vegas side was vastly different to the side we saw at home. There's a lot more variables in Las Vegas than there is playing in New Zealand for the Warriors. So I'm going to lean to the round 2 performance we saw from them as more closely aligned of what we can expect from them this round. Then when I look across the fence at the Roosters, sure, they have some huge names returning, and they are coming off possibly the greatest win we've ever seen in rugby league history. But ask yourselves this. Is that really sustainable? What we saw against Penrith, do you think that's sustainable for an entire season? I don't think it is. I don't even think it's sustainable for an extra week, Winnie. Simply put, they fought tooth and nail for everything in that game. They got away with a forward pass from Marky Mark, their centre. And I just don't think the level of emotion and physicality that went into that Panthers game with everything to play for at home, at the Panthers home, can be repeated 2 weeks in a row with travel to New Zealand. Now, the last time these two sides did play in New Zealand, the Warriors did lose 14-0. It was wet weather conditions, but they didn't score a point. And so the attack has to be in question somewhat coming into this game, and they'll need to get into this contest nice and early against the Roosters. But the good thing for that is they've got Barnett, they've got Capel, they've got Fisher-Harris. They have enough experienced forwards in my mind that they can get into the grind right away with this Roosters side. They're also looking to break an 8-game losing streak against the Roosters, and I'm going to back them to do as much, mate. So I've got Warriors at the line for my prediction in this game. And if you want to try score, I like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the left wing there for the Warriors, just because Dominic Young seems to often be called out of position there on the Roosters' right wing. So I can see RTS getting over and scoring him. And, pretty confident on the Warriors here. I think they should get the job done, mate.
I can't knock that, especially the way that New Zealand showed what they can do last week. It's just with those reinforcements coming back, I think it adds to a Roosters team that suddenly has the belief that actually they can make something of this year. But I think both sides come in with belief. I'll answer a couple of the comments. Like I did say, New Zealand's an above average defense. I guess the way I think of it is I roughly power rate the Warriors as about the 12th, 13th best team in the comp. But when they're at home, they're probably closer to middle of the pack team. But I think it's a bottom 4 attack. So in order to be, just slightly below average overall, you've probably got to have an average or a little above average defense. Not saying the Warriors are a brick wall, but closer to maybe the product that we did see in 2023. And someone else asked, am I losing weight? The thing is, I only eat the weeks the best bets are in profit. So I haven't got a lot to lose. So hopefully we can go a little better this week, Mark.
And I eat all the opposite. That's why I'm so big. So let's go to Game 3, Broncos v Cowboys, Friday, 8 p.m. We're at Suncorp Stadium. Line is set at minus 16.5 against the Broncos, and that has not moved. No changes to their team list. For the Cowboys, Thomas Duffy's been dropped. Jake Clifford comes in, and they're also bolstered by the returns of Jason Tamalolo and Jeremiah Nanai. Alrighty, Winnie, this is one of the greatest rivalries. We're about to see another chapter written. Both sides, no doubt, desperate to win for different reasons, but the line does suggest a blowout to the Broncos. Do you see it that way also?
Most likely in the original Queensland derby, although Queensland sides in general did not get rugby league at all last week, 0-4. Brisbane will hope returning home, along with the possible return of the Star Centre Stags, could spur on some redemption. But the Cowboys at least are getting back Tamalolo, and someone must have learned a lesson in Nanai being dropped to reserve grade. I'm not sure if it was Jeremiah himself or if Payton realised, well, hang on, nobody in this team's much better at defending, so I might as well pick the guy that played for Australia. Clifford could add some stability at 7. Brisbane lit the turf alight in round 1, okay? And I think we're just overconfident in round 2. As for North Queensland, they've been much more consistent this season. Unfortunately for them, consistently inept. I look at this line, a 17.5 does seem too high, and it's not a number I want to lay against a Cowboys side that still, as bad as they've been, have 6 Origin caliber cornerstones and a bruised pride. I envision Brisbane getting over the top of their rivals through Paddy and Payne up front, but I did say that Brisbane would do the same against Canberra last week. I'd be more inclined to take the plus with the Cowboys, although I reckon if Brisbane won last week and the line was even bigger, then that would be a great spot to play North Queensland. The fact that Madge gets that ammo to light a rocket at Red Hill this week is enough of a reason for me to pass.
I look at the Cowboys opening 2 games, and to be completely honest, it's really hard to find many positives for them. And I haven't seen anything to justify offering a tip on them here, to be honest with you guys. Meanwhile, I look at the Broncos, and they've shown completely different results in their opening 2 games. But at least we have one strong game to base it off, right, in round one there. Now, I actually think Michael Maguire will put a huge emphasis on defense this week. He's always kind of been a tough defensive coach, and they did concede 32 points in the previous round to the Raiders. Couple that in with the Suncorp home advantage, and I've got no concerns the Broncos will win here. I'm just not sure about that line. I think it's a little bit too large for me. So I'd be looking at a Cowboys under team total, actually. Now, I won't give a specific number there or tip there. I'll let others see if they can find value there and if anything they find. But I don't really see the Cowboys scoring over 18 points in this one. It's another adjustment with a new halfback coming in. And I think the Broncos, with a defensive focus and at home, will be able to keep them to a pretty low total. All right. Anything before we move on to Game 4, Winnie? Game 4, Saturday, 3 p.m. Sharks v Rabbitohs. We're at Sharks Stadium. Line was set at minus 16.5 against the Sharkies. It's moved 1 to minus 17.5. No changes to their lineup. For the Rabbitohs, Jack White is back. Tallis Duncan is named despite a hamstring concern last round, and Lachlan Hubner is out suspended. Now, the Rabbitohs have defied odds as underdogs twice so far this year, Winnie, but with respect to the Dolphins and Dragons, the Sharks do loom as a much greater test, and the market is priced as much. How have you got this one going and why?
Well, we've got 1-1 plays 2-0, but everybody would agree Cronulla's been a fair bit more impressive so far this year. Names the same 17. They got it done in Townsville without really raising a sweat in the humidity up there. Now, Cronulla get their first game at Shark Park. Souths do get Whiten back. With Hubner suspended, it means Duncan would start at lock, but he's got that hamstring complaint. So it's getting a bit thin for middles for South Sydney. This feels like a pretty straightforward game, though, to me. Like, it's Saturday afternoon. Like I said, at home, Cronulla are clearly the higher level outfit. They should just cruise to victory. The issue to me is the bookies haven't missed Cronulla. It seems to me that despite the fact of a punter's bloodbath last week, the bookies are not anticipating that the punters will shy away from the favourites, because I wondered if a couple of these favourites could have a little bit of a discount in the line after what we saw last week. It's not the case. These lines are as big as I could imagine they'd be. And I think Souths, with the confidence of those gritty wins and knowing that you don't give up in games and you never know what can happen late, down 12 last week and actually win, I feel like Souths can match it with the Sharks in periods, but you can see the Bunnies getting worn down, and a team like Cronulla are so capable of scoring a few in quick succession and really putting you to the sword more so than what St. George were able to do. So I lean to Souths with the start, but I respect the tenacity of Cronulla and the fact that Souths are unbeaten, so you're not going to get the favourite overlooking or underestimating the opponent here, which you want if you're taking the start with the underdog, which is why I'm leaving it alone.
So I'm just quickly checking round 2, Winnie. I think, if I'm correct, yeah, so the Dragons scored more tries than the Rabbitohs in that game. And if we go to round 1, the Dolphins scored the same amount of tries as them. So whilst their last 2 wins have been really tough and gritty, that's a fact that needs to be said. They've equaled the tries of their opponent and actually been outscored and still won by a point there against the Dragons. Here's where I have concerns about their tough, gritty style. That steel edge to your defense and working for each other, I think it works even when you're down by 12 against a Dragons side that isn't experienced. It's not at that elite level yet. They've still got a spine that's all new together and clicking. I feel once the Sharks get 12 ahead here, they're not going to fumble and bumble, for lack of better words, like the Dragons spine did. They're going to do what they did against the Cowboys, where they didn't actually execute that well, but they executed more than enough to start piling on points. And so I have to say the Sharkies here. I'm not convinced a tough, gritty side that has had 2 tough games in a row is going to go to the Sharks Stadium and come out over the top of them. This Sharks side has way too many points in them. I think that the fact they're a high-scoring team is suited by a Saturday afternoon game at their home ground advantage. The Sharks went 2-0 last season over the Rabbitohs, and although the Rabbitohs team is stronger now on paper, as I said before, they have had a physical start to this season. So I am anticipating a little bit of a down spot for the Bunnies. So my prediction will be Sharks 13+. I think we'll see both their wingers score as well. Mulatalo and Stone Street will cross for tries in this one. Anything before we move to Game 5, mate?
Tip coming up in the next game.
In the next one, Game 5, Dolphins v Tigers, Saturday, 5:30 p.m. We're at KO Stadium in Redcliffe. Line is set at -1.5 against the Dolphins, and it has not moved. They have Jack Bostock and Fini Fuiaki both on their extended bench. They could come in, and no changes for the Tigers. Alrighty, we need the Tigers bounce back last round with a commanding victory, and they meet a Dolphins side that is looking to bounce back themselves at home after an 0-2 start to their season, and you are tipping your boys to get the job done here. Break it all down for us, please.
Yeah, a lot of confidence in the comments about the previous game. A lot of people backing Uncle Wayne there with the 16.5. There's one or two comments going the other way for a big Sharks win. But plenty of support for Bennett's men, and it's not the start we wanted in the post-Bennett era at Redcliffe. The big bad wolf, he's named the same 17 that was second best in Newey. As you say, hopefully can get a couple of inclusions. Bostock, Funifuaki would be handy. Westwood Dynamite after a sloppy start versus Para. And a big part of that performance spike was certainly getting Buller back at number 1. Now, it's worth noting, I didn't say at the top, but Buller's got a foot injury. And if he's out, it's an even bigger advantage to my best bet, and another reason why I do like that, though I'm not leaning on that, but it would be a bonus. The other thing is, as good as West looked, and I tried to warn about this after round 1, your opponent is going to dictate how you look as well. So it was Parramatta who's been as bad as anybody so far this year. And I'm sure for that reason, a lot of you guys saw this coming, that I am going to take the winless Finns. I don't believe it's a biased pick. It's not about wanting the Dolphins to win. But I just think that although the West look the stronger side, that these are pretty equal sides in terms of ability. And I still think the Tigers need more time to consistently produce, because you've changed the centerpiece of your whole attack. When you look at the Dolphins, their goal was definitely to make finals this year. When you start 0-2 and you're playing the triple time Spooners, you don't have time to say we can build into this season. You've got to give everything you have this week and be dialed in. And I expect the Dolphins to do just that and get the better of the traveling Tigers with Hammer and Herbie, your big players, your big-time players to step up in a game when you really need it. So I can see the two H's having some highlights. And I might just, on that note, throw straight to the best bet that's been submitted from the other Benny, Big Benny Williamson, from Benny's Best Bets. He's got a try scorer tip on this game.
G'day, TryPod fan. Benny from Benny's Best Bets here. Quick shout out and thanks to Jacob for having me on. Looking forward to sharing a few tips as we move through the season together. My best bet this week, we're heading to Redcliffe on Saturday for the match between the Dolphins and the Tigers, and we're going to lock in the Hammer for a try, $1.91 on Bet365. Hammer averages a try every 2.1 games. He's yet to score yet, and we head into the third season. A fullback from the Dolphins side has scored in 100% of games against the Tigers. The Tigers conceded 19 tries in 24 games to opposition fullbacks last season, accounting for 16% of their tries, and they're yet to concede a try to a fullback this season. Averages-wise, the Tigers are due to concede one, Hammer's due to score one. The Dolphins coming into this one on 2 tough losses on the road, finally get a game in front of their home crowd. Feels a bit like the perfect storm, so let's lock him in. Best of luck if you follow Legends, let's get it.
I'm jumping on that right now. I love that. He's absolutely sold me. That is beautiful. And I'm
why don't you combine the two? Hammer and a Dolphins win. I love the fact that Benny's try scorer tip backs up my best bet. And just, again, the different styles that we have among the handicappers that are going to be included in this show ongoing this year.
Mate, and that's exactly what I did. Dolphins to win here and the Hammer to score. Now, this is a spot of motivation for the Dolphins. And we talk about on the podcast trying to find those spots of motivation throughout a season to find value. And let's be completely honest, an 0-3 start to the season is disastrous for any side. And no side wants to experience that after what is always a difficult preseason. Keep in mind, the Dolphins didn't play finals last year, so they were back in November last year, guys, starting their preseason. They just can't afford to start 0-3, and I'm expecting them to be right up for this contest. Let me look across the fence to the Tigers here. Now, we have a side that has not been their best in recent years in terms of managing momentum and replicating their form consistently across games. They have the emotional high point, they get the unexpected win, and they fail to reproduce the next year. Now, I know that they've got a new roster and a lot of new players, but it is the same coach, and it's the same coaching systems. And there is a huge chance that continues to carry over, at least until they have a bit more experience together as a 17. Now, let me add to that. The Dolphins have won 4 of their 6 NRL games played in Redcliffe. Their losses was to the Penrith Panthers and to the Raiders by a field goal. So this is, for all intensive purposes, the 6 games we've got, it's a fortress. There's no shame in losing by a field goal into the Panthers. Meanwhile, the Tigers, every time they've travelled to Queensland for their past 5 games, they have lost. They have struggled in the state. So when I put all that together, Winnie, I can only play the Dolphins here at the line. And I'd honestly, it's just like that Warriors game. I'm really confident on this tip. I think Dolphins will win and win this one quite well. Alrighty, game 6, mate. Titans v Knights, Saturday, 7:35 p.m. We're at Cbus Super Stadium on the beautiful Gold Coast, and the line is set at -1.5 against the Knights. Brodie Jones moves to prop as Leo Thompson is out for them, and don't forget Kai Pearce-Paul accepted his suspension for a shoulder charge. For the Titans, no Jimmy Joliffe, so Isaac for Asur Mala'awi moves to the bench, and Alofiana Khan-Pereira is out, so Tony Francis comes onto that left wing there. The Knights have won 5 of their last 6 against the Titans, and they're looking for a 3-0 start for the first time since 2015, Winnie, but you think the Titans will spoil their party? Break it down for us.
Well, we've got the next 2 games, in fact, that are winless teams against lossless teams. I know that's not a word, but the caveat with this one being Gold Coast have only played once. So it's a little harsh to call them winless, but didn't look like winners last weekend at Belmore, that's for sure. And I underestimated the disadvantage of a round 1 bye. I think that the Titans hadn't had that hit out. You get no advantage being fresh going into a game that early in the year where everybody's already fresh. Maybe that's an excuse as to why the Titans turned up 30 minutes late to season 2025. But did the Gold Coast really get into gear once they were down 22-0? Or was Canterbury just coasting and coping with the loss of 2 marquee men doing MCLs? As opposed to the Knights, we've seen them win ugly versus West and then win pretty against the Dolphins with the attack opening up. And then speaking of attack, your boys, the Titans, will miss AKP on the left wing, but KPP and Thompson are bigger outs for Newcastle, I think. As I said on the recap, critiquing my losing best bet with the total, you can't just speculate that a team should improve. I understand. I did say that about the Titans, but here I am back in the Gold Coast again when clearly the form is going to steer you into Newcastle. It's just, to me, the Titans have significantly stronger middles in this one. I think that sets the tone. I think there's equal ability in the halves, maybe edge Titans, if anything. Outside backs both have electric options. No, the Titans don't have a Kalen Ponga. I understand that, so you might give edge Newcastle, but counteracting that is home advantage, having that hit out, a sense of urgency after such a poor start last week. It makes the game a lot closer to a toss-up for mine. In fact, if I have to pick a winner, I will say the Gold Coast prevail, but I don't need them to win for my best bet. I'm catching half a try if it comes down to a kick.
Let me preface my breakdown with this, guys. So I host a Titans podcast every week where I'm looking at it from a Titans lens and coming up with ways why I think the Titans can win. And I did get to about a 4.5 out of 10 in confidence on this game. But then I come on this show and I need to objectively break it down for you guys and tell you how I'm seeing it without bias, because it's not fair for me to jump on here every week and just give you Titans winning. I do think the Knights should win here. I do favour them, even short on a few players. Now, last year, the Titans did only win 4 out of 11 games at Cbus, so it certainly wasn't a fortress or viewed as a difficult road game for rival teams. As for some positives for the Titans, look, I would say they've blown the cobwebs out now. There was a bit of a break between trials, and we didn't see their absolute full-strength side in the second trial. They've blown out the cobwebs 1-17 now, and now they're back home. They did have some bright spots against a tough Bulldogs side, and I think that when you look at where they went wrong against the Doggies, when you like that try to Josh Curran and Kurt Mann was so soft that it's not like you need to work on weeks technically at training to fix that. It's just an attitude thing. It was literally just an attitude thing. So what I mean to say, guys, is the Titans can quite quickly correct some of their issues that we saw in round 1. But I need to weigh that against the Knights side that is travelling quite well in form, and we have seen them attack with some really unique systems where Kalen Ponga was first receiver, then he was second receiver, then he was sweeping out to the sides. And so their spine was playing a really creative brand of football that could disrupt the Titans, who do have their issues in defence. So I'm going to play it safe for this one, guys. I'm going to predict either side 1-12. I certainly think we'll see the Titans show a lot more fight in this one. And the fact that the Knights forward pack is so under strength certainly brings them in as a chance to win.
To address some comments, Ryan's asking how many points is AKP worth? Colt saying he's a huge out for the Titans, scoring the bulk of your tries. In fact, you wouldn't know the stat off the top of your head, Clarkey, but like AKP was the leading try scorer in the comp for a team that finished 13th. It's like AKP scored about a third of your tries last year, right?
Yeah, look, he scored 22 tries in his last 20 at Cbus. But for those that don't know Tony Francis, he took over Loffy's wing spot the year that Loffy came into the NRL at Burleigh Bears, and he had really similar stats. He probably has a stronger hit up than Loffy, not quite as fast. But if there's a break to be made, Tony Francis will not let any punters down, in my opinion. He's a very good replacement.
That's excellent knowledge there that Clarkey has of the Titans top 30. And a winger, just to me, is never going to be worth a great deal of points. There is only so much impact they can have. I don't want to underestimate, the fact that wingers can score some special tries and make plays. And AKP is electric in that way. But there's other elements of the game, as you mentioned there, with yardage. And some tries, it is as simple as catching it and putting it down. In saying that, now maybe this will come down to a late opportunity and Francis won't score, and then I can have a whinge on Sunday that if AKP had been there. But it's all part of the consideration. I think Leo Thompson, one of the up-and-coming stud props in the comp, and Kai Pearce-Paul as well, is such a handful that I'm happy the Titans don't have to deal with either of them. I'm also happy. Look, I promise you I have not watched the Badonis tip yet, but it's on this game. And I really feel like he's going to be on the Titans with us. I feel confident that he will be, but I don't know. Let's have a listen.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Padonis here, coming to you live on the TryPod podcast, where I'll be giving out my Padonis Play of the Week every Tuesday. Jumping straight into round 3, I like the Gold Coast Titans at plus 2.5 as my best bet of the round. For me, it's a WTF game, wrong team favoured. I've got the Gold Coast as a small favourite. They're currently an underdog. The Knights have been fantastic to start the year. They're missing 2 key forwards in Thompson and Kai Pearce-Paul. They're going to come back down to earth a little bit. The Gold Coast won't look as bad as they did in that first hit out at Belmore, where they made 1,000 errors and ill discipline. They started 0-6 last year. Hazard's going to have them fired up to avoid 0-2 in front of their home fans. They're going to be riding this all the way through. Happy to take the hook at plus 2.5. Follow me on Sideline Sharp on Facebook and Twitter for more. Good luck.
Awesome. Now you picked it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And Padonis only sent me that clip. He cut it fine only about 6 minutes before we went live. As soon as I saw, because they tell me which game it's going to be so I can put it sort of in our rundown, I just knew he was going to be with the Titans, with me and with yourself as well, mate. And a lot of similar reasons there. The only difference being I've gone plus half a try, Padonis plus 2.5. And I considered both. I just like that extra. I like the half try in terms of value a little more than 2.5 points. I especially like it if I've got the team with the inferior kicker. I don't know if that's actually the case in this one, though. I think they're very equivalent plays. So it will be interesting to see if most likely both plays will win or lose together. But there are certain scenarios where it can go 1-on-1. So that would be interesting to see if it is tight, was one of those a better option than the other.
Definitely. It adds a bit of intrigue to this game for all of our listeners. Let's go to Game 7, where the Eels host the Bulldogs Sunday, 4 p.m. We're at Combank Stadium. Line now set at -9.5 against the Doggies. Bailey Hayward, he moves to 5'8" with Matt Burton out. Satili Tupanua, he moves to back row with Kikau out. Daniel Saluka Fafita and Curtis Morin join their bench. For the Eels, they've axed Ronald Volkman, so Dean Hawkins is their new halfback. And Addo Carr, not named on the wing, named on the extended bench, so a chance to come back. One of the biggest rivalries in our sport here, Winnie. It's the 2-0 Bulldogs up against the 0-2 Eels. Understrength doggy side, but still heavily favoured. You are taking the Eels with a first half play in this one?
That's right. Taking plus 4.5 first half. I am really surprised that Tristan mentioned that this line has gone from 6.5 to 9.5. I understand that the Eels looked so bad, but the Doggies' injuries that occurred on Sunday, I feel offsets how bad Parramatta looked. And I don't think it's justified that line should have gone so far. So I do like the 9.5 as well. I'll get to my thinking taking the first half shortly. I knew straight away I can't play a 2-0 team versus 0-2. I've just seen it happen too many times that form goes out the window. The desperation factor often makes it a lot more murkier. And then looking at personnel, it's not just the injuries that the Dogs sustained, but you've got Addo-Carr and Madison could bolster this team from the reserve bench. And I really think we will see what Para are made of here once again in front of their paying members. It's just a team that has looked lifeless so far, but there's enough in that list to make a game of this. happy with plus 9.5. If I could have found a 10.5, that would be my best bet. But I've gone the 4.5 basically because we've got to lock in the bet on a Tuesday. I'm pretty certain you will not be able to get a first half plus 6 or plus 6.5. That would mean the line gets to 12, 12.5, right? So I think getting the 4.5 now, you're going to get the best available number. If it goes to 5.5, it's virtually the same bet. However, if money comes for para, that line could go down. And if that number goes through 8, the first half line goes to 3.5. And that's a significantly less valuable bet. Whereas if you take 9.5 today, because there are no 10.5s available, it easily could tick up to 10.5 and you don't have the best bet on game day. So for the less risk involved in which way the number might move, as well as people generally know that I've got that bit more faith. Favourites can blow teams out late, even if it's tight for 60, 65 minutes, and I'm protected from the back door if I've only got to worry about the first 40.
Yeah, no, that was a great breakdown there, and I appreciate that insight as to how you landed on that. That was really good. I look at this game, Winnie, and I go, okay, we've got an Eels side that's conceded 88 points in their opening 2 games, and they've only won 2 of their last 16 at CommBank. Now, under those stat lines, I simply cannot predict them to win. But then when I look at the Bulldogs side, this is a side that will be readjusting and completely new for the first time because let's not forget their left edge has been their danger side so far this season. You then move Bailey Hayward, who's typically played a lock/hooker role for them, into the left side playmaker, and you move him with Satili Tupanua, who's new to the club and didn't do much training this preseason due to a hamstring injury. No doubt that will take some readjusting. It will absolutely take a readjustment of big proportions, realistically. It changes the whole dynamic of what's made them so successful in these opening 2 rounds. So I'm really not too sure how to play this game. I think Bulldogs will win. That much is probably not up for debate. I think the systems they've built where it's around what they do as a team and working for each other rather than the individual brilliance. So I think that they will recover well enough and win despite losing Burton and Kickout. But if I had to lean some sort of play in this game, I'd probably go an overall unders game. I expect the Eels' offense to still stink. They've got a new halfback coming in, so they are going to be adjusting as well. And the Bulldogs, they'll be strong defensively still, but certainly we're looking at an adjustment period for a side where their most effective edge and weapon has been taken away from them in big proportions. Alrighty, let's move on to game 8. We've got Sea Eagles v Raiders this Sunday at 6:15 p.m. We're at 4 Pines Park, Brookvale Oval. Line is set at -5.5 against Manly, who do have Daly Cherry Evans and Tom Trbojevic named. Siasuia Takiaho is back, as is Tolutau Kola. For the Raiders, Xavier Savage returns to them, so Hopewadi drops out, and Trey Mooney joins their bench with Hosking out. We have the Sea Eagles returning home after a dismal effort in New Zealand against the Raiders, who are underdogs again, but riding a 2-game winning streak. Winnie, who have you got in this one and why?
So these are 2 teams that have actually had a lot of entertaining encounters over the years. The first thing was Turbo and DCE going to be right to play, and they are both named, but I would still monitor that. Kula is a nice inclusion for Manly's backline. Hosking, a big loss for the Green Machine when he filled a bit of a hole that was left by Tapine. Hosking played lock, and Tapine was out last week and remains out. It was an outstanding win for the Raiders in their home opener. Manly knows what it's like to play outstanding at home. That was week 1. Then Manly broke down under fatigue against a ferocious Warriors side. I don't take a lot away from Manly for last week. Basically, we've seen each end of the spectrum for Manly, how good they can be and how mediocre they can be made to look too. And we're probably going to see something closer to the middle here. I think you have to favour Manly to bounce back at home if you knew those big guns would be fit and firing. But there'd be no reason for me to play Manly right now. I want to let people know, as I always try to do, this line is 5.5 in places and 6.5 in others. So if you want the favourite, obviously you lay the 5.5, or if you're taking the points, you take the 6.5. In terms of execution on a Tuesday night, why would you play Manly now and you're risking, in the next 5 days that one of these guys doesn't get through training and is held out of the game? So I think if you're going to play the game and you like Raiders, get the 6.5 now. You have the opportunity. Manly's missing one of their main men. If you like the Seagulls, keep following Clarkey's page, keep your ear to the ground, stay across the late mail. Jump on later in the week where I think you'll still probably be able to nab a 5.5 because it's not going to be like breaking news that they're playing. It's just going to be the news filtering out slowly that they're getting through training. And, as the squad gets cut down, if those players are still there, and it could even be one you wait till an hour before kickoff. And then that Manly's not going to risk Turbo this early in the year. So if he's playing, he's probably going to be okay. And then I'm fine with laying 5.5 with Manly if you're that way inclined.
And then the other factor to add to that, Winnie, is that Tommy Talau is their 18th man. So they do have the option to move him straight onto a wing and Lehigh Hopper wide to fullback. So it's almost as if they're preparing just in case Turbo isn't available there. I like how you said if you like Raiders, take them now plus 6.5. I do like them, I'll be honest. Look, Manly looked near unstoppable in round 1. But then having seen how they played in round 2, with really no excuses to be in a down spot this early in the season, yeah, there's a bit of travel involved to New Zealand, but no real excuses, and you should have been riding a wave of confidence after what you did to the Cowboys. I now stop and question, particularly with the Cowboys continuing that poor form, how much do I read into that as Manly brilliance or the Cowboys stinking? And the evidence actually suggests that it was more so the Cowboys stunk in that game than it was Manly's brilliance. Raiders are a tough, gritty, defensive side, and they do draw errors out of key opposition players because they get frustrated because it's not working when it gets tough. Look at Reece Walsh last round as a prime example for that. Now, Manly had 12 errors against the Warriors. I expect a similar number there, if not maybe an increased number. The fact it's an afternoon or a night game, but not too late, could help them a little bit there. But in reality, I do have the Raiders winning here. They have beaten the Seagulls the last 2 times they've played at Four Pines Park as well. So it won't come easy. They'll need an 80-minute performance, no doubt. But I do think that their consistency over 80 minutes will outdo the Seagulls' X factor here. And of course, there is also a chance that, in my opinion, Tom Trbojevic could be ruled out closer to kickoff. So my tip here was either Raiders plus 6.5 or Raiders 1 to 12. You could play it either way. I don't think Manly are fully out of it, but I do expect the Raiders to win.
You know what else is coming to mind for me? This corresponding fixture. Do you remember it? Manly hosting Raiders. It was late last year. It was a night game. And the Raiders were double-digit underdogs. And I'm pretty sure Manly led by about 16 points. It was like 22-6, something like that. And then the Raiders scored a couple of fluky tries. I think Elliot Whitehead got like a one-on-one strip. There was like a spilt ball, and the Raiders got like a very unlikely upset. So I'm sure Manly remembers that too, for what it's worth.
Definitely. I remember that game as well, actually. That'll bring us to Clarkey's Collect, guys. So I kind of hinted at this throughout the show as to what I was most confident on. So I really like TUES and Dolphins at the line. So 2-leg multi there. We need TUES to win by at least 1 and the Finns to win by at least 2. Multi those 2 games together. They're the 2 I'm most confident on, and that pays $3.53 on Top Sport. I think my record this year is about bang even, isn't it?
1 and 2.
1 and 2, so slightly in the negatives.
Yeah, you're down about a unit.
Down about a unit. But we're looking to come back,
less than a unit, because your one winner was like $2.30.
Yeah, we're looking to come back in a big way here, guys. So Dolphins and Warriors at the line for Clarkey's Collect this week. That will do it for our breakdown of this show, and I'll hand it over to you, Winnie, to have the final word.
So I agree with Dolphins. That was one of my best bets. I went under first half in New Zealand Roosters. I've also played Titans, and I took the plus half try handicap and a first half start with Parramatta. Those are my 4 best bets. Our guest best bets that we're going to have on as regularly as possible and follow their record too. Benny Howard, he took Penrith's team total under 18.5. Undertaker in the same game went either team 1 to 12, Melbourne and Penrith. Benny Williamson went hammer anytime try scorer, and the Padonis is with me on the Titans. He took the 2.5-point start. Big thank you to those boys. I put them under pressure. I said, I really like this idea, and I hope that you'd be excited to be involved, but it's a tight window and everybody's busy at this time. And I'm saying you've got to send a clip and a screenshot, and it's got to be after the team list. It's got to be really close to when we go live, but it's obviously got to be before we go live, and they've all delivered. And I'm excited about how much that might add to the show this year, as well as what you do every week, mate. So good luck getting your first win. Hopefully both our sides can get their first wins of 2025. And I hope everyone who follows us has a great week too. We'll see you on Sunday for the recap. Lego.